Yes, we're recording.
We're recording?
Yes.
All right. So today we're going to talk about 3 as a magic number, and I'll tell you I've got 2 tickets. The first ticket's going to be for the first person who can tell me where this actually came from.
Well, that's right.
Who said that? All right, come on up and get it. So PCI version 3 just recently released, recent as in last year. And there were some major changes to the payment card industry, specifically around requirement 11.3. For those of you who aren't aware, I will bash the audits, that aspect. I do try to curtail my language, especially with those who are under 17. I am a former qualified security assessor for the payment card industry. It's one of the reasons why I'm now currently jaded. I will not present any information that is FUD in nature, although I may fall off the stage and kill myself in the process. Everything that I relay and provide back to you is experiences that I've had, things that I've seen with various clients. I will not give the client names out to protect the not so innocent. A little bit about myself. Yes, this is actually me. Back when before I was jaded. I'm originally from Iowa, so I like the farm country. However, it took me one summer working on my grandparents' farm to realize I was not going to milk cows for the rest of my life. Started my career in the United States Navy. Originally went in for 4 years and ended up spending 10. I'm business bilingual. Now this, a lot of you may be going around going, well, what does that mean? Well, I speak geek and I speak business language, dollars and cents. If I've been drinking, I also do this really cool Chewbacca sound, which, for those of you who have been around me, I don't drink that often. I'm an information security professional, not just IT. Big difference between the two. IT tends to focus on firewalls, antivirus, which are pretty much worthless. I deal with protecting information for organizations. I'm also a red team pen tester, courtesy of the Department of Defense and other stuff. So I like to break into places. And that doesn't mean necessarily leveraging the infrastructure or network-based systems. I'm also certified and got a bunch of letters behind my name, but, you know. And again, don't beat me up because I am a former QSA. So with the transition that came in place, what we're seeing within PCI version 3, specific to 11.3, is we're going to be moving from this compliance check the box. Now, does anybody in here deal with PCI, payment card industry? Do they take credit cards at their organization? No? Okay, cool. Anybody in here a pen tester? Nobody? Cool. What's that?
In my lab.
In your lab? So what we've seen is for the last several years, we talk about this thing, and clients love to do this. This is your scope. Now, the PCI DSS applies scope to any system that processes, stores, or transmits cardholder data. And that's not the way we attack. That's not the way a criminal organization is going to attack. We're not going to go up to the front gates of the port and go, hey, we're here, we're going to break into your treasure trove. Okay, who wants to keep count on how many times I stumble over this? That's twice? Okay.
That's 3.
3? Okay. So we're going to start looking at how we can move away from, this check-the-box mentality and actually start talking about how we protect the organization. Now, like I said, I am a geek, and I am very visual. After 10 years of working with the government and another 5 consulting with them, I do not believe in death by PowerPoint. So we'll talk about the history, current situations. Any Bob Dylan fans in here? Because the times are changing. Talk about that a little bit, the problem and the solution. So the history. Started off, we had the 5 card brands. So the card brands initially were responsible for any time there was a fraudulent activity, they would pay the fee. Well, they don't control those ingress and outgress points. Those are merchants, payment processors, all those organizations. So they banded together and they formed this thing called the Security Standards Council. And that sounds kind of cool, doesn't it? We have a council of security. No. Because we've all seen this before, right? One ring to rule them all. So the applicability, it applies to, of course, merchants and retailers. We go and buy stuff. Everybody's followed the Target thingy, right? You heard about that? Neiman Marcus, Michaels. We're starting to see a trend. Why do criminal organizations target retailers? Where the money's at. So your Home Depots, your Abercrombie's, your Papa John's, payment processors. These are the central aggregate points that translate and grab all that information and provide it out for reconciliation and providing the actual goods and services. Financial institutions, again, where the money is. Are we seeing a common thread here? What are criminal organizations concerned about? What do they want? They want the money. And all other entities that store and process and transmit cardholder data. Now, wait a minute. Hospitals and clinics. Insurance companies. All these organizations, churches and mosques, synagogues, if they take a credit card, it applies. Academia. Because all these organizations that we're seeing, and even the ones that we saw previously, all have strong security programs, right? I can call up the phone, or I can pick up the phone and call the CISO for a mosque, right? In academia, hospital. Well, the key thing is all these organizations are focused on delivering what they provide. Their aspect is not on security. But the PCI DSS does apply to them contractually. So the situation, not that situation, our situation. So business has this knack of trying to save money, and we do that through the compliance and audit aspect of defining what the scope is. So things like PCI, HIPAA, Sarbanes-Oxley, are any of these new to you? You all know what they are? Okay. They incorrectly focus on the toxic data, cardholder data, protected health information, all this type of information. But yet, breaches are still occurring. Now, we have all these standards that require us to do these things. Why are they still occurring? And for you guys that think that my mind's in the gutter, that actually stands for what's the failure. So, a quick rundown on PCI version 3.0, the newest standard that came out. Oh my goodness, we're going to start looking at the threat environment. That could be a bad thing, right? Because when we start looking at what's actually going on in the real world, we have to take our head out of the sand and actually see what's going on. Also clarifies the requirements and understanding around the intent. What is it that we're trying to do when we implement these types of compliance requirements? Is it to check the box? Or is it to protect consumer and our information? Help manage the threats and risks that our organizations face. Again, I am not going to attack through the front door. So when we talk about the advances of PCI and where it brings us to, Security Standards Council realizes education and awareness. How many have ever fallen or had somebody in their organization fall prone to a spear phishing or a phishing campaign? Yeah. The primary focus, you want to get a phone call saying, hey, I just received this odd email. Should I click the link? Instead of the phone call of, hey, I clicked this link. Is that a bad thing? Because by that time, we're already in and established in your network. Establishing security as a shared responsibility. If I have a third party that's supporting me, they had better be secure, because if they're not, that's an attack vector. Now, general counsel, compliance officers, auditors, we're protected by contract. Yeah. So that contract's not on the Ethernet, it's not on the internet. It just says that you're doing your part to protect it. That's not going to help you. Self-detection. Now, this is a key critical one. So we're all familiar with the Verizon data breach report, right? Those guys at BVB, they do a great job of putting all the information. So this is from their 2013 presentation where they're talking about how they were discovered, how breaches were discovered, and how they were handled in the time frames. So all of these right here are external. These are internal. Those ones, the magic breach theory told them that they were breached. 77% of those who were breached were reported by third parties. Now, anybody who gets told they've had a breach, that's going to make the news, right? How many of your executives, how many of us want to be told that something bad has happened? It's like being a parent and getting that call from the school that says, hey, your son just beat up another kid with what he said was a lightsaber, which, by the way, if you get that phone call, the appropriate answer and response is not, was he a Sith? The appropriate answer is, won't happen again. But 77% of breaches that occurred and reported were reported by third parties, somebody outside. That's embarrassing. I mean, that's the classic baseball. If we get told that we've been breached by somebody outside of our organization, we're going to have a very bad day. So on the left, we have PCI requirement 1.3 from version 2.0. It really doesn't have a lot to it. It just says, do an internal and external pen test. Anybody ever work with somebody that actually thought a vulnerability assessment was a pen test? Yeah, a couple of us, right? Because, we can skate around it. We did a vulnerability assessment. No, that's not what a pen test is. But as you can see, they've actually, in the new version of the DSS, they've actually defined what it means to have an actual pen test. So the three areas that when I was going through this that I keyed in on, that were very important takeaways from a business aspect as well as a pen testing aspect, is, including your coverage for your entire cardholder data environment perimeter, which we knew, and critical systems. Well, what are our critical systems? Active Directory, would that be a critical system? Oh, yes. But it doesn't store, process, or transmit credit card data. No, it just controls the keys to the kingdom that allow you to get in there. What about your centralized logging systems? Same thing. It has access to be able to be leveraged off. The other one, scope reduction controls. This is what the clients will do. We have segmentation. No, you have a flat network with a couple of apples on your router or switch, and you're calling it segmentation. Well, under the new standard, we have to test to validate that what the client is claiming or the customer is claiming is actually factual. Now think about that for a second. For those of you who've dealt with any type of sensitive information, what does that mean? Anybody? Bueller? No? That means I can start testing outside of what you have defined as your cardholder data environment. And the most interesting aspect is a review and considerations of threats and vulnerabilities experienced over the last 12 months. So how was Target breached? Anybody? Through their HVAC. Third-party HVAC provider. How many HVACs are you aware of that process, store, or transmit credit card data? Should they be talking on the same systems? Probably not. But we have network segmentation in place. So they define the intent, the Security Standards Council has defined the intent that the penetration test system simulate what is actually going on. Well, here's a novel concept. How far can I go into your organization? Now this becomes the eye-opening aspect. And it's a game changer. But what does that mean as an intern? Yes?
I'm actually curious, the legal implications of that are interesting, because I can't hire someone to pen test, say I'm at a hospital. My point of sale thing is if they're going to go outside of specific systems and say, because I absolutely can't have them attacking, confidential medical data, that even though, should be secured, it may not be secured, you just can't, by HIPAA laws and these things, allow organizations to come in and potentially get this.
So you bring up the HIPAA constraint. So the HIPAA defines, the HIPAA requirements actually do define the requirement for a pen test.
HIPAA's more or less been okayed by ARA. And ARA says best possible.
Well, and you know, if you can find a criminal organization that will read the laws before they have
I'm not at all trying to suggest that this practically makes a problem, but it does make a problem if you're a CIO and you have to hire someone to.
That actually does that. So one of the things that you have to do is talk through those types of discussion points, because a criminal organization doesn't care.
I absolutely agree.
From a legal aspect, and I'm not a lawyer, that's my disclaimer, you want to have those discussions with your pen testing team so that way you can say, you know, if you come across this data, how are you going to handle it? Because when I've been engaged with clients, and it's spanned the industry from healthcare to financial services, Department of Defense, there's this thing called a get out of jail letter. You define what the rules of engagement are, and you have that get out of jail letter, and I highly suggest that you print it out and tack it to your refrigerator, because having the Secret Service show up at your door at 2 o'clock in the morning when you're doing the authorized pen test, they get jittery when you reach into the desk to pull out the letter. And there's a very distinct sound that a 9mm and a shotgun make. Anyways, long story short, there are legal implications, and you have to discuss that. And that is something that you definitely want to bring up, because it is a concern. What happens if somebody does that? You know, you're probably looking at it from, well, that constitutes a data breach. You know, we've exposed customer information. If you get a business associates agreements in place, and the organization that you've retained is reputable and they are doing the proper, you know, handling of data, it's not going to be any more of an issue than if you were sharing it with the data services provider in the cloud. They've got some organizations too. But when we start talking pen tests, everybody has their own definition. So this is why you want to spend the time investing, talking with them. So overall, when we look at these things, you know, what does that mean? Well, from an industry standpoint, we've been doing it wrong for a while. Why is that important? You know, when you look at the 11.3 in its entirety, you know, we talk about our critical systems. You know, your authentication, your security system. I kid you not. Is everybody in here familiar with Bit 9? That is like the antithesis of my pen testing whenever I see that. However, I have come across more instances where they've left the default credentials in the console. So what do? I turn around and disable it. Same thing with firewalls. So, validating and the segmentation and scope reduction controls. In an academic standpoint, if you've got network segmentation, I should not be able to take access of a user's workstation and human resources are legal, and then pivot into your cardholder data environment, right? I do. We do it from all over. Our networks are organic and they grow. And because we're IT professionals, we always make sure that we do the documentation to support the network, right? Nobody's ever going to go and attack directly. That fails. You know, that's where the term is coined around Trojan horse. How did they actually get in? They built a horse and gave them a gift, because everybody likes gifts. You know, and I found out during a couple of recent pen test engagements, sitting up in a customer's lobby giving out Hershey bars got me passwords. But everybody likes gifts. Do not attack directly. We've also created this perfect storm. You know, we're in the business to make money, right? Is anybody in here not in business to make money? Okay. Well, I'll be Captain Obvious on that one and say, you know, guess what? Now you become a target. You have something that other people want. A lot of us tend to work globally. We have vendors, we have suppliers that are distributed. So we kind of rely on the internet to be able to affect and do business. Used to be we could establish these little microcosms everywhere. Well, we can't do that anymore. Start talking about intellectual property. Information is monetized, and it doesn't matter what it is. Cardholder data, protected health information, those can create lines for us. And we tend to put a lot of focus around those areas. But what about our intellectual property? That's not regulated. This is another thing, too, that gets me. The romanticized Hollywood hacker. Everybody talks about, ooh, the hacker, the hacker, the hacker. No, let's make a clean delineation. The folks from war games and movie hackers, they don't exist. Who's attacking our organization is some guy named Yuri out of former Ukraine who wants to make a couple $100 million. That's what his focus is. Jurisdictional issues. So I haven't actually updated this slide because somebody had brought up, well, we'll sue, we'll seek litigation to go after the hacker or the criminal syndicate. And I was like, we can't extradite Edward Snowden out of Moscow. Do you think a judge there is going to, give up his cousin? No. So computers and data are criminal currency. Now, let's talk about this for a little bit. How businesses tend to view is what they do. What criminals view your IT systems at are a little bit different. It's a common form of currency for them. Setting up child pornography servers. Why am I going to set that up on my Rackspace account? Why not just take somebody's account over and I'll use their system? That way they get in trouble with the Fed and not me. Corporate email access. Who likes spam? Yeah. But yet, when data like this happened with Adobe, where millions upon millions of users were their information out, we saw an influx in spam. And these are all different parts of the criminal currency concept. Crypt locker. Pay us money or you don't get your files back. And people are making money off of this. Stealing money from ATMs. Bitcoin seizures. All of these are aspects that a criminal organization will look at your assets, and that's how they look at it. How can I monetize this asset once I get it? So this is not how data breaches actually occur. Not all the time. You don't drop a USB drive and it just data goes everywhere. You can drop a USB drive and lose your data. How many of you are sick and tired of hearing the term APT thrown around? Amen. What we're seeing, and I work with an incident response company, and what we're seeing is that these are commodity attacks being leveraged against organizations. They persisted over several months, finding that the organizations have tools and resources. Guess what? They're hiring programmers, and they're hiring black hats to do this for them. Why? Is anybody in here a carpenter? Because I'm not. When I have a carpentry issue, I call a carpenter. One of the things that just agitates me to no avail is you hear something like, I'm going to throw the RSA breach out there. Because they titled that as a advanced persistent threat. Ultimately what that was somebody who went into their trash folder in their HR department and clicked on a infected Excel spreadsheet. How advanced is that? If you've done any type of pen testing, you know that that's like one of the fun things to do is try, sending, client-side attacks. Is that really advanced? No. Not by my standards, but that's all good because we've got our report on compliance and we're green and it's telling us that we're good to go and that we can continue to process credit cards. So, top 10 list of what causes breaches. Underfunded. Everybody got their budget that they need to protect their organization? No, we're underfunded. Improperly implemented and missing controls. How many of you have shelfware? You buy this really cool tool and then it goes away. Overly complex solutions. I love working with IT professionals because if you tell us develop a highly available network, we will do it. And you will have 9,000 points of redundancy. N plus 9,000. The problem is when it comes from a security aspect, complexity is your enemy. Keep it simple. Lacking the proper resources. Again, we have staff to protect us. Absence of management oversight. Is security buried in IT? Is it buried 15 levels away where nobody sees them? Are they in the basement? Your entire IT department may be in the basement, depending on how well you get along with business. Disconnection between IT and the business strategy. Documented current and enforced policies. Well, I just need to make this change so we can get out and watch ESPN during March Madness. Did that go through the change board? No. Not fully understanding risk, the immature risk management program. These are things that I just love. And I mean, what we're seeing, but the number 2 aspect is, too much focus on the compliance. We're treating these external auditors like the boogeyman. Oh, they're going to fine us. I'd rather get a fine from an auditor and fix the problem than wind up on the Wall Street Journal because Yuri and his band of merry men in the Ukraine have owned my network and started citing data, and oh yeah, by the way, they've been there for 2 years. And then no executive support. Again, being able to speak to the business, about the business, in business terms, key critical. Compliance-based pen testing, epic failures. So this is an anatomy of an attack. The ones in red, the areas highlighted in red, are those that we do not control. We're responsible for over 2/3 of it if an attack is successful against us. But we'll come back to that later. Compliance-based pen testing sucks. I like the most interesting man in the world. They scope the engagement, they've given you 15 minutes, go forth and own the systems. No, that's not realistic. You're missing the bigger picture if you work in the compliance industry. We're going to test just this one little component. Well, how many of your networks are all autonomous subsystems that don't talk to each other? I'm wagering that they probably look something like this within your environment. Working on that little area isn't going to bring any value. It'll check a box, and if that's the only value you want, rock on. Because this is not what you're protecting against. Really, it's not. These are the actual threats that are out there. Oh, also, criminals don't care about compliance issues. They don't care about the scope. I've yet to see one that will actually honor the maintenance window for when you can actually do testing. That's very few. And they will invest the time that they need to succeed. So, telling your pen testing team that they've got 3 days to do this, not real. Different attack vectors, are your pen tests that you're doing taking these into account? That's the one I love the most. Fishing and whaling. But how do we measure, how does the business tend to measure success? Checking the box. Reduce the scope. Reduce expense. That's a big win for the business, right? Ooh, we didn't spend that much money. Which, by the way, you get what you pay for. Buy a lot of top-tier tools, but never use them. But they pass the report on compliance. So, compliance-based pen testing, and stop me if you've ever seen these happen. I found 2,500 vulnerabilities in your network. Has anybody got that report, the multi-100-page report? Yeah. As a business owner, what I'm going to do is do this. So what? Patches come out every Tuesday. Able to compromise a laptop. Yeah. Yeah, one laptop that has encryption on it. I was able to get domain admins, the keys to the kingdom, right? Well, we change our passwords, and we're behind the firewall, so we're safe. From the business aspect, when I hear pen testers tell me this type of stuff, it's this. The sky is falling. It doesn't bring me any value. It really doesn't. So, what I like to do when I do our pen tests, one, I extremely tell people stop being a tool monkey, don't push a button. Anybody can push a button and walk away and, ooh, I got shelled. Bring business value in execution of your pen test. Stop relying on your tools. Stop claiming the sky is falling. Education of the business, getting them to understand why this is important, and then start focusing on the business. Well, how do you do that? In business-driven pen tests, we start talking in business terms. We have your customer database. Will your executives and leadership understand that? Oh yeah, they'll understand that in a heartbeat. Wait a minute, what? We have your board meeting minutes. Now, if any of you have ever sat on a board for anything, there are certain things that get discussed that you may not want public, and that will hit home with them. Oh, we have your intellectual property and trade secrets. All the processes that have made you a good company up to date, I now own. Those are mine. That's what I call my oh sugar honey iced tea moment. Because now it's starting to sink in just how far. You know, we've got your merger and acquisition information. We have your M&A. Is that thing? That's your O-fire truck. Because now they're starting to realize and understand that they're seeing it in a different light. We're not talking bits and bytes, we're talking business. Because guess what? All of these have dollar volume associated with it. There's money attached to it. And the business understands money. So traditional security measures, firewalls, antivirus, IDS, IPS, those suck. You know, we go through this hamster wheel of pain, you know, from we're happy because we're doing business and it's all is well in the universe, and then somebody comes along and pokes us, and then we start looking at it, and then, oh my God, it's react, respond, and then back to business as normal. So how do we fix it? Communicate and educate. You know, drive home and personalize what is important to the business, but personalize it for the staff and associates. If you start changing their culture and the way they think, they're going to start, that behavior is going to translate directly back to the business. Start planning for that incident, because it's not a question of if it's going to happen, but rather when. And when I say plan, don't do tabletop exercises and call that the test. Run through the actual scenario. Is your business able to repeat and continue to function and resume business and generate revenue? Test, 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 and test some more. We don't do enough testing. And when I say we don't do enough testing, we don't do enough real-world testing. I remember one of the first web applications, and I am not a web app pen test guy at all. I just like to bang keys into input fields. And I came across an SQL injection. And I remember meeting with their application development team, and the app dev lead was like, well, that's not how the application is supposed to be used. And I was like, seriously? That's your defense? Why didn't you do some type of parameter, checking and validate that what I'm putting in isn't going to do bad things to your network? Demonstrate business courage. Being able to get up in front of your business and tell them, this is why this is important. This is why we need to do it. I've had customers that have told us, well, we can't do penetration testing because our network is, too critical to our business function. That is the exact reason why you need to do it. Being part of an incident response company, I used to crack up because I get calls up that said, hey, we just noticed something odd with our network. What did you notice? Well, it's self-healed. What? Self-healed? Well, there were some patches that automatically went in, and I was like, oh, stop right there. There are no automatic patches. I was like, what was the indicator? Well, we watched, 20 gigs go to Uzbekistan. Oh, and you got bigger issues. So, coming back to the aspect of the business side and why this is all important is because instead of saying, we need to protect because we've got cardboard data, can we really afford this? Civil claims, regulatory fines, cost of remediating, because once you get skylighted, you're going to have to invest to fix. I have a quick video. Unfortunately, I don't believe I'm going to have any audio for this. This is from an actual pen test, or a real pen test. me see if I can get this.
They're saying we might get a little bit more tonight.
So, working with an organization,
Still a
we
little more
explained to
dirty than I
them
would have
the
expected.
necessity for doing real-world pen tests.
At least downtown. I would have thought they would have gotten the main thoroughfares like Grand Traverse has still got snow all over it.
So, one of my pen testers is on site, sitting in their lobby, and he's also cracking their wireless network while he's waiting. Now, the pretense that he did was he called up and said, hey, I'm sending out some folks from AT&T to check your wiring closet because you reported in a wireless network leak. Now, wireless networks don't really leak, and AT&T doesn't tend to make house calls of their own volition.
Right.
Now, what you're seeing...
Yeah, I need to look at the wireless
that's the
closet because we got a call that
That's
it's
the person
not
in charge of
working.
security.
It should be right here, isn't it? This EG 108.
Now, he's directing the security person to where he needs to go.
No, I went up to 11. There's nobody up there because it's after hours.
Which one is it?
It should be this right here, EG 108. Yeah.
Now, I have to admit, they have card access, you have to swipe to get in, but they also have keys too. So, double security, right? Reduces the risk.
There we go.
There we go.
Awesome.
That just went up.
Oh, let's get through this door too.
Oh, but they've got the other one, so they're still fine, right? No, not so much. So this is a good investment for them. Because
Oh yeah, these are UPSs and these are servers.
so
Just gotta find the right rack. Oh. All right, there we go.
Okay, you need anything else?
No, at this point I think I'm good to go. All right, thank you very much.
Oh, just keep my hands cool?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. All right, thank you.
now, Sean is sitting now in their data center. Alone, unescorted, and all those controls, the security guard, the double access requirements, they all failed. As we saw, anybody who's ever implemented a HID knows that they're not inexpensive. However, the easiest way to avoid that would have been how? That would be good. She's security. She goes everywhere.
If the equipment was locked up too, she would have lost that too, so she would actually be able to plug it in.
Right, and I do give another presentation where this is one of my lovely case studies that I use. Because they have done everything wrong, and it could have taken as little as a half hour to train the individual to say, this is what you need to look for before somebody directs you into our data center. You saw in the span of a couple of minutes, he went from sitting in the lobby with trying to crack their wireless to inside their data center. Explaining to the CIO of this organization and the C-suite that we just stole your data center, they asked the question, well, what does that mean? We have everything. Well, how do we fix it? You train and educate your users. Well, we've got, we passed our, one that I love is we've got our SSAE 16. Yeah, okay, good. We've got a rock. Oh, okay, good. Did any of that help in this instance? This is what real-world pen testing is. This is what an attacker is going to do. Our focus on the compliance stuff and audit, not so good. And I think that I'm almost out of time. 4? 5? Okay. So with that, I'm going to open it up for any questions. This is my contact information. Yes?
So I've heard of fishing, but I've not heard of whaling. What is the difference?
So fishing is the general, we throw a wide net. Okay? Whaling is I'm targeting a specific individual. So let me run you through a scenario. I may fish an organization saying, hey, you know, sign in here to get 50% off your next Best Buy purchase with the organization. You know, we partnered with your organization. We're giving your employees 50% off. Whaling is, I'll target somebody specifically like your chief operating officer, your CEO, and I'll send them an email like, and I've actually had to stop doing this, where we'll send the information to them and say, you know, your court case has been closed. You can choose to appeal, and I mean, it looks like a legitimate, you know, appeal, you know, a Department of Justice website. You know, all you have to do is click this download, fill out the paperwork, and fax it back, and you can appeal the process. You know what that CEO or COO is going to do when they see that website? They're going to click it, they're going to open the document, and then they're going to do what? They're going to forward it to general counsel. And they're going to start sending it to external counsel. And then guess what? You're going to see shells popping up everywhere. So whaling is the very specific targeting.
So for the keynote, you mentioned this as well, and it does seem like it's a lack of life, but what's really getting these businesses is the money aspect of it, of everything. It's all about the money, but it's not effective until you personalize it. Hey, I banks give to your desk, I have this, and if you were talking about that you'd rather accept the bond than to continue on like that. But at what point does that line just become silent risk, and they'd rather take risk and just pay the fine?
It all depends upon the organization's value of their brand. You know, you mentioned until it gets personalized, and I hate using the target CEO for this, but I can guarantee that right now he's really reconsidering how he approaches security in the future. You know, is there a line? There's always a point of diminishing returns, where when you start finding out more and more bad information, you're going to realize it's going to cost more to fix it. You know, ultimately, it's going to fall back to executive leadership and the folks that are in charge to make that determination and make that decision on how they're going to do. I have one more ticket. Okay.
I'm not saying that physical penetration tests are a bad idea. I don't want to preface it with that. But based on what you've seen and on the idea that most, at least the companies I work for, they could be like, you know, maybe anomaly. But most companies that I work for have things like, you know, camera systems and whatnot to at least report individuals. And in fact, like most, in fact, at least my company is from China and from Russia. Do you think all of the physical aspect of security is important? It's not, where would you write that on the scale of curiosity? Like, I'm not saying like, hey, let's leave the front door open, but like, I would think that like, in what I've seen is that, you know, it would be something like that would be a last case scenario. So we'll walk through the front door, as soon as they find a trace, like somebody's going to go through and they're like, okay, well, we're going to look at every individual. Because you're pretty much setting yourself up to call.
So from one of the key things to keep in mind specifically when you're talking about criminal organizations that affect these attacks, they approach it from the same way our business organizations do. What is the maximum return on investment? Now, there's an entire taxonomy behind, you know, how an organization will be targeted, and it starts off with something that's innocuous as email, maybe a phone call, because those can be good. Moving into some of the network-based, they want to remain as transparent and invisible to the organization as possible. When you start looking at attacking an organization's wireless or attacking an organization's physical security, I want to know what they have about it. And that means that from my perspective, the risk is worth enough of taking to step foot. As a pen tester, working in rig teams like this, the last thing I want to do is put a foot on the ground, because that means my risk, the risk to me, is there. You know, so is it an extreme? Absolutely. But again, what is the reward that the organization that's actually affecting it going to see? You know, if I'm going to win, you know, I may not take the risk if I'm making $10,000. But if I'm looking at 10 or 100 million, oh yeah, I'll send my kids off to do something like that. Where's Parker? Oh, he's breaking into a bank right now. Any other questions? Oh, come claim your ticket. That's all I have. And you guys didn't beat me because I was a QSA, so thank you.